Hi, darlings. It's Kira Joel. I am an author and a narrator and a person that wants people to be happy and to treat each other nicely. So, I have been doing different monthly challenges through the year of 2021. So, if you want to try any of these for yourself, I invite you to do so or to come up with your own challenges and see how it goes. So, for March, I decided to do a very low caffeine month. So, how did it go? It went fairly decently, except I forgot that I was doing it until I was like 3 days into March. I was like, oh, it's March. Oops. So, on around March 3rd or 4th or something, I was like, okay, time to start. And I was like, oh, like if I just go cold turkey, that might be kind of rough. So I'd usually do a matcha tea and a chai tea every morning, and then sometimes regular coffee, usually on Sundays as a treat, maybe once in a while if I felt like I needed an extra pick-me-up. And yeah, just not even having the matcha, but still having a chai, my brain had a tantrum. Like I had a crazy headache the day I skipped it, and I was like, what? Like just from skipping a matcha? I was like, that's intense, brain. Really? Okay. Like if I'd been having 10 Red Bulls a day and I just stopped, like I could imagine not feeling great. But I was like, I mean, there's caffeine, but not like a ton. So that was fun. So I decided to taper gently off of the chai tea because I get this like powder. It's called like Blue Lotus, Blue Pearl, Blue something. It's like in a little can. It's like, yeah, powder. And I have a rooibos one that's naturally caffeine free. So I just slowly started shifting them until it was just all rooibos. And that was great because then I didn't have the crazy headaches or anything like that. I felt kind of like a pansy, but I was like, no, I'm being kind to myself. I'm tapering gently so my body's not going to like freak out. And what did I notice? Pretty much good stuff. So coffee or caffeine in general can give me crazy anxiety. Like I will just wake up panicked and be like, oh, life is impossible. And just freaked out about everything. And so it was very nice to just be more relaxed. Like I would still once in a while have like anxiety feelings, but they were easier to come down off of and they just happened less. So that was great. Also noticed better sleep and it was easier to fall asleep, especially because I realized how much caffeine is in chocolate. There can be as much as a cup of as much caffeine as a cup of coffee in like a chocolate bar. And I was like, whoa, because sometimes I would just have chocolate before bed because I'm like, a little bit of dark chocolate, nom nom nom. And now I avoid doing that. So if I have chocolate, I have a little bit earlier in the day. Where was I going with this? Better sleep. Yeah, better sleep. So that's been awesome. And what else? I think those are the main things, just the better sleep and less anxiety. And my energy level is still pretty decent. Not a huge change from before. But I do a lot of things to keep my energy up. I'm kind of a psycho about it. So every morning I have a 3-minute cold shower. I do yoga. I have celery juice. I have warm water with fresh squeezed lemon. Do I do anything else? I probably do other things. So all those things help you with your energy level. So when I first thought of this challenge, I was like, I do plenty of things to keep me awake, keep my body feeling good. I try to have a salad every day, so there's all sorts of nutrients in that. So I'm like, do I really need the caffeine? Especially because I know it gives me anxiety. So it actually went pretty well. And I think it's something I want to stick with. And then also the reason why I stuck with decaf and coffee was because I love coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I know some people feel like decaf coffee is an abomination or like an oxymoron. Like, why would you have coffee without caffeine? It does have a little bit of caffeine, unfortunately. But yeah, I love the taste of it. I think it's so good. I do worry though, because I've heard the decaffeination process isn't the healthiest, but I do get organic fair trade decaf coffee, so I'm hoping that helps. Like I feel like it'd be better than Folgers decaf coffee. Maybe. And then chocolate. Like, I mean, I could give up chocolate. I didn't have any when I did my Whole30 for a month, so I can do it. I don't want to do it. So I feel like that was good. I feel like that month went really well. And if you want to try a no caffeine or a low caffeine month, I highly suggest it. I would suggest tapering gently to be kind to yourself. But yeah, you can give it a go and see how that feels for you to not have something kind of like forcing you to be more awake. And what am I doing for April? Everybody, darlings, a little bit nervous about this one. Like, maybe not a little, like a lot. I am quite afraid, and I've been trying to figure out why. I'm going to be working on not complaining and basically only speaking positives. I was like, how do I do this? Why am I doing this? So one of the big reasons why is in so many different things, I see how important it is to be positive and to focus on the positives and to focus on what you want. So for a long time, I used to follow a ton of stuff about law of attraction, especially when I was having some like difficulties with religion stuff. And I was like, I don't get Christianity. Like, it's so confusing. Very much dove a ton into law of attraction and listened to a lot of Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks. And so much of that is about focusing on the positive, focusing on what you want, speaking positives and your affirmations and all of that. And the idea of whatever energy you're putting out, you get back. And I feel like there's a fair amount of science that's starting to prove that. And I know Joe Dispenza talks about that and how there are studies that seem to prove that that's an actual thing. Also, I recently narrated the book NLP at Work, 4th edition, The Difference That Makes the Difference. You should check it out when it comes out. It should be coming out April-ish, maybe, give or take, somewhere in there, of 2021. But a lot of that talks about how our brains work, and when we're positive, life tends to be more positive. Like if we are thinking about how we want our day to go. So we wake up, and if we're like, there might be some traffic on the way to work, or like the weather's kind of crap, but like whatever, like I'll have a good time. Maybe I'll listen to a good podcast, listen to some music, and yeah, it's gonna be busy at work, but you know, I'm gonna get a lot of stuff done. I'm just gonna be calm. I'm gonna be productive. I'm just gonna enjoy my day. Like, I might have that coworker that just always talks about negative stuff, but I'm just gonna really listen and be present with him, and you know, it's all gonna work out. And then I'm gonna just have a good time. And so your day probably goes relatively goes relatively like that. What was I even gonna say? I had a word that was supposed to go then. I don't know what it was. But it goes like that to a fair extent. But if you wake up and you're like, my day's gonna suck, the weather's terrible, the traffic's awful, I have so much stuff to do, and I have that stupid coworker who always complains, you know, you're probably going to be miserable. Like, you're probably going to be extra late, you're probably gonna get drowned in rain, and then your coworker that's annoying is just gonna make you like more frustrated, and then maybe you're gonna mess something up, and you're gonna come home and you're just gonna like, meh. But if you have like the happy thoughts of like, it's gonna be amazing, like you come home feeling like maybe a little tired, but really accomplished. And you're like, I'm gonna take a great bath. I'm just gonna enjoy myself or hang out with some friends. And so it just makes a huge difference, because whatever you're telling your brain, it's like, okay, and tends to take it in and try to prove you right. Melissa Peer talks about this, like how our subconscious, well, even the NLP book talks about this, that your subconscious doesn't really know what's real or imagined. So if you're like, yay, life's great, your subconscious is like, okay, cool beans, yeah, it's great. And if you're like, it sucks, it's like, yeah, you're right, yeah, look at that thing. Like, it's going to want to try to prove you right, whatever you're telling it. So like I said, Marissa Peer talks about how we can tell ourselves lies about things like, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. She's like, tell yourself better lies, because your subconscious will try to take that in and make it true. So be like, I'm really smart, I have great coping mechanisms, I am amazing, I'm having a great day, like I'm really in shape and whatever. And like in the Bible stuff, there are things about being more positive. I'm trying to remember like specific examples. The only thing that comes to me that I thought was really interesting is There's a dude, preacher, pastor named Joseph Prince that I like to follow, and I've read some of his books. And he is super grace-based, and it makes me feel happy and warm and fuzzy because Christianity is very confusing to me, and I feel like there's so much like anger and meanness and judgment in it. But anyway, he's happy, and I like him. He talked about how he had this thought about like our worries and how basically there's all these like golden pipes coming on down, and each of these pipes brings different blessings. So you're like your health, your family, your finances, your home, your career, your whatever. And whenever you're worrying about something, it like blocks that pipe, so you can't get that blessing. And I was like, whoa, like all these different things around me are basically saying, yo, be positive. And right now I'm in a book club. I gotta tell you guys something. Like, I was gonna do a different video. I don't know why I'm telling you this now, but holy moly, I was like sitting in this book club. People are super nice. I really like everybody. And then one person was telling us about how at an old church, there were like 2 or 3 dudes who were adulterers. And so these people, other people in the church, like went to these people and they're like, yo, stop it. And, you know, one guy was like, oh gosh, okay, I'm sorry, and repented. And they like accepted him with open arms, like, oh, you're awesome. And now he's like one of the leaders of the church. But one dude was like, nope. And they just kicked him on out. And I was like, I'm like, I'm very uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, how did you feel about that? And she's like, oh, I thought it was really harsh. But then after I kind of realized, like, you know, it might have been a good thing. And I was like, because I'm a kinky, pansexual, polyamorous, I'm just like, and I write books that are a bit steamy, a lot steamy. And I was like, am I gonna get kicked out of my church? I was like terrified. I was like, what if like some person comes up to me and they're just like, yo, Kira, you gotta stop writing those dirty books. You gotta stop being pansexual and queer and all that. And yeah, you gotta marry your partner and then never look at anybody else. And I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, get out. That's terrifying. Like, I couldn't sleep very well last night after I heard that. I was shook. Everybody, shook. This has nothing to do, it kind of has something to do with my month of no complaining. But anyway, I had to share that. That's scary. And I don't know how I feel about that. Like, okay, so yes, it kind of does fit in because the whole idea about being more positive, I'm like, what if this guy was like very not positive, that was assumably cheating on his wife? Like, just being like, whatever, like, I'm gonna do this. If he was like a really dark negative influence, do you just cut that out? Because it sounds like in the Bible, like they talk about that, like, hey, look, here's this tree that bears no fruit, like, screw you, tree, and it withers and dies. So it's like, do we do that? Do we say, screw you, negative person who's sinning all over the place? Get out of here. I don't know. I feel like that would just harden that person's heart more. Like, if I was kicked out of my church, and I don't think I would be, like, I have talked with my pastor about some of my like stuff. I'm like, why does premarital sex not feel bad to me? So he knows, like, he's got an idea, and I haven't been kicked out of my church. So if like my pastor knows, I'm probably fine. But it still makes me wonder, like, do you cut those people out? Because I do feel like you need to make boundaries. And if there are people who are toxic, you might need to cut them loose. But I always wondered about that person. If you cut them loose, will they find joy and love? And is that your responsibility? I don't feel like it is. But I was just thinking about that guy that just got kicked out of his church. Like, what did he do after that? Was he just like, oh man, I lost like my family, basically. Like, depending on how close he was with his church, was he like, oh no, you know? And did he rethink his ways, or was he like, screw those judgmental dicks, you know? So that's another thing I'm wondering about on my no complaining April that I'm going to be doing is, what do you do about the people who are very negative and very toxic? Hoofda. That's a thing I'm going to try to think about and figure it out. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Because I want to love people. I want to love people where they're at. But what do you do if they are very negative, or maybe toxic or dark or just all of that? It's a good question. This got very random. I just had to share that. Like I said, it shook me. It shook me to the core because I was like, lady, if you knew who I was, would you even want me in your home? It was very scary because I love God. I love God and I love how much he loves me. Other Christians terrify me. So, and they would probably not think I'm Christian. That's fun. Maybe we'll do another video delving more about this because this is now 16 minutes long and I should probably stop talking. Okay, so thank you for listening. I invite you to do your own challenge. Maybe one of my challenges, maybe one of your own. Invite you to try it out. Also, like I said, I'm a writer, I'm a narrator. Kira Joel, please check me out on Amazon and Audible. And love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Okay, bye.